Hey, it is Aliki here, and today I will tell you everything you need to know before going to Brazil. Brazil is so different like any other South American country. So yeah, Brazil is kind of like a continent, a world on its own. So I will share some things you need to know before you go there. So what is quite different from other South American countries, in Brazil for a lot of things you will be required CPF, which is basically Brazil tax ID. So for example, you must know in so many countries there are like these bicycle stations where you just online with QR codes and transferring money, you can just simply get a bike and enjoy the city with a bicycle. In Brazil, they do have those, but you only can get them if you have CPF. So yeah, we were traveling through Brazil for a month. Obviously, we're not gonna get like a tax number there. So we did face a few difficulties, and I'm gonna go more in detail about that in my next point. Data. So of course, for data, again, you need CPF number, but my favorite company in South America, Claro, does offer a good option for foreigners. Basically, it's like a SIM card for foreigners. That's how they call it. And with that, you don't need a CPF number. You just get the card. It is a bit more expensive than it would usually be, but as a foreigner, we don't really have much options, and we were just so happy we could get data. It cost us around $20, but it was so worth it because it was hassle-free. We just went to the Claro office. They gave us this SIM specifically for foreigners. They did everything for us, and we were able to have data in Brazil for a month. You can also buy it for a week, then it's going to be a bit cheaper, but if you are a longer time, I think the only option was a week and then a month. Please, if you know any better company in Brazil that offers good SIM cards for foreigners that we can get only for a week or a month, please comment them in below. I'm sure people who are watching this video will appreciate it. I just traveled South America for 6 months, and I always ended up buying with Claro, because even if I looked into other service providers, Claro always had the best option. Claro was always working, so I've kind of stick to what I knew. Another thing that you will need CPF number is to order food, and I spent like one evening, I spent like 2 hours downloading every single food app that I knew, and every single app was requesting CPF to order food, which is really annoying. I was super hungry, so then after like 2 hours I found one app, Rappi, and Rappi I've used in other countries too. And Rappi is the only one in Brazil that doesn't require CPF number. So if you want to order food, I would say save 2 hours for yourself and just download Rappi. As I mentioned, I use Rappi in other countries. So yeah, Rappi I would say is quite trusted and good food delivery service in South America in general, and especially in Brazil. So when in Brazil, always I would recommend to use Uber rather than taxi. I want to mention the metro systems in big cities are really good, really safe, so definitely a metro is an option. But if obviously tourists a lot of times need to use taxi, and I would definitely highly recommend using Uber instead, because it's a safer and cheaper option. In Brazil, the taxi drivers actually charge 2 times more. There was one situation where we had to order taxi. We had no data or no network, and like we had to get a taxi, and we knew already how much it is to get to our hotel, and it was literally 2 times more. And then after, when we discussed that with the local people, they all confirmed that you definitely need to go with order Uber rather than go with the local taxi. So this, I would say, is a money saving tip in Brazil too. Go with Uber and not local taxi. So Brazil is the only country in South America where people speak Portuguese and not Spanish. People tend to say that if you speak Spanish, you kind of can get by understanding a bit of Portuguese. So I speak a bit of Spanish, and I went to Brazil thinking that I might understand something, but I couldn't understand anything. Like in Brazil, Portuguese is so different of the Portuguese that I recognize in Europe. Like they have their own dialect, their accents, like how they pronounce words. Like I couldn't understand anything. Like I was like in a country where I don't speak the language, and that's why sometimes it was a bit hard. So locals in Brazil, some of people do understand a bit of Spanish, so I could get by with a bit of Spanish at some situations, but English also, like if you talk with people in hospitality and tourism industry, there are people who speak English, but it's not like, and not a lot of people speak English. So Like, I really sometimes struggled in Brazil because they only speak Portuguese. They don't speak Spanish or English because, of course, why would they? It's such a massive country. There is so much to see and do and travel that, like, they don't really need Spanish or English because of how big the country is in economy. So if you don't speak Portuguese, you might struggle a bit. So I just want to prepare you, and maybe if you can learn some basic phrases, that will definitely be very helpful. Brazil, and especially Sao Paulo, is facing a really big homeless people problem. And I looked up online the numbers, and it's quite shocking. And I just want to prepare you and warn you that the moment you're gonna go to downtown in Sao Paulo, it might be quite shocking for you. It's really a lot of number of homeless people, and a lot of them are drug addicts. That's why I sometimes felt uncomfortable, and I actually posted a whole separate video about Sao Paulo. Check it out, I'm gonna link it here if you haven't seen it yet. And then I'm like super honestly just sharing my first impressions of Sao Paulo. And I actually got so amazing comments from locals, from tourists, like commenting and kind of agreeing, kind of not agreeing. And I do agree, and I want to say that after I spent like a week in Sao Paulo, I started to feel comfortable, especially places that I loved. Like, really, I started to get used to the situation, and I agree with people saying that there is this real danger, and then in this danger that we kind of see as, you know, when we first arrive. And it could be a bit like shocking, and you might feel a bit scared and uncomfortable. Because there's a lot of homeless people on the streets, and you can actually see people like taking drugs on the streets, and you know, it can be a bit disturbing if you're just not used to it. If you come from like a country like Switzerland, let's say, where like everything is so perfectly organized, and you know, you see that and it can be quite shocking. But I do agree that it's not like as crazy dangerous as it can come across the first time you land in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, and you see all that. So yeah, I guess I just want to warn you a bit so you are not completely shocked like I was. You know, I didn't know about that, and I landed in Sao Paulo and I was just in shock for 2 days, and then I got used to it. So I kind of just want to warn you. And after my previous comments, I want to add a comment that Brazil is not as dangerous as news are saying it is. Like, obviously, like in any big city, there are some dangers and there are pickpockets everywhere, but I promise Brazil is not as dangerous as, for example, I had completely different impression about Brazil. I thought it's more dangerous, like all the, you know, gang stories and crime and drugs, and I thought that that's all gonna be in my face, but it wasn't. Like, I understand that also all those things do happen, but they kind of do happen, you know, not in front of you. If you're just a tourist, if you just want to explore the city, see the city, there will be no trouble for you, apart from pickpockets that are everywhere in any big city. So just watch your belongings. This might not be as important point, but you have to try Açaí. Açaí is absolutely incredible. Açaí is basically a berry that grows only in Amazon, and of course Brazil covers a big part of Amazon, so it's kind of like very typical to Brazil. The berry itself is very like sour, but what they do for this famous dessert, they mix it with loads of sugar. So it's not good, it's not healthy, it's not like a berry dessert. It is a lot of sugar, but they mix the acai berry with the sugar, and they make it with like oats and nuts and granola, and like put like some banana and strawberries at the top. Like, the dessert of Açaí is absolutely incredible. I guess if there is one thing like regarding food, desserts, drinks to try, then it's Açaí, because the real good Açaí you can only get in Brazil. I traveled most to South America and I never saw Açaí nowhere, and of course I've never seen it in Europe, so I think it is very specific to Brazil, and if I ever go back to Brazil, that's gonna be the first thing I'm gonna have again. Brazil is not a cheap country. I mean, it's probably cheaper than Europe, most of the Europe, and probably like America, but it was the most expensive country I traveled in South America. Brazil has its own currency, Brazil real, so you might need to change some money, but this actually brings me to my last point. Brazil is amazing with cards. Like, you literally don't need cash. You can easily get by with only just a card. Even if I just wanted to buy like a little chocolate or water, like I could buy everything with the card. It was so easy. And even like the street artists or like people that sell stuff on the street, even they have like this little card machine, and I could literally buy everything in Brazil with card. So I have had no hassle of changing money or anything like that. I hope this video will help to prepare for your Brazil trip better. I traveled Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro. I saw the amazing, incredible Iguazu Falls, which was absolutely one of my highlights of whole South America. So if you want to see that, I'm gonna link a playlist here. Make sure to check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for some more travel content.